Hi everybody, we're back, and now we've got Jeff Watkins, owner of Cloud City Comics, with us. He's been running around like a chicken with his head cut off, folks. Let me tell you. I went up to him and said, "Hey, you got like 2 minutes for us?" He goes, "Yeah, sure." That was like what, an hour ago?
Closely. I don't want to say. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's huge for the store, though. I mean,
it is. Growing up, like I just got into comics when I was like 9, and with my childhood, I needed heroes, and that's what kind of drew me into comics. And my whole life, like all I wanted to do is like make a living in comics, whether it was like owning a store, drawing, or whatever I could do. So it's more than just like a sale or like it's more than an event today. It's like.
Well, I've been saying all day long online and everything. It literally Free Comic Book Day is like Black Friday in the comic industry.
Yeah, it is like from a business standpoint, but I don't care about, like, money means nothing to me. Seeing like kids in Batman suits and like people like raving about the Avengers movie, just like stark raving mad about this amazing movie, and it's more that. I mean, yeah, it's great to do like actual percentage points of your fiscal year, and like that grown-up side of it is great. But watching professional artists like draw pictures for people and watch, like, that's so much more. It's so much a dream come true. Like when I got back from Antarctica, all I wanted to do was own a comic store, and I've been working my butt off for it. We just had our 4th anniversary, and like there was hundreds of people in line. I was like between 300 or 400 people in line. I couldn't even
easily
count.
There was at least 300 or 400 people.
I had no concept of how many people it actually was, but just cruising the line and thanking people and saying hi, like this beautiful little girl that hands me a drawing of the Hulk. It says "To Jeff" with a heart on it. And it's just like what amount of money could supersede that? Like, who cares about money at that point?
I mean, we've all been there. You and I are not that far apart age-wise. Maybe a decade or two. But,
I'm 36, whatever that is.
I'm 42. So, it's pretty much the same thing. Growing up in the Silver Age, you basically immersed yourself in comics.
And I feel really lucky and fortunate because I've seen things. I've been lucky in comics to have met people, and originally I was in the music industry, so I mean, I was lucky. I did well in the music industry, and I got to work with like 50 Cent, like Fall Out Boy, like Coheed and Cambria, like I don't want to get braggy, so I'm not gonna like name names, but like it was fun and it was great. It's fun being backstage at one of your concerts that has like 15,000 people at it. You're just standing there like watching everyone perform. But I was always kind of like, yeah, it's cool, it's whatever. But like when I met Marv Wolfman, like I was the most like, sir, oh my God. He's like, kid, cut it out. Because if you ever met Marv before, he's the sweetest, nicest man in the world.
I haven't met him yet.
What a sweetheart. And he's just like, cut it out with the sir stuff. And I'm like, sir, sorry. Like I'm so starstruck, and I'm starstruck by comic creators, and I've always been head over heels in love with comics, and I really believe this. Like, pictorial storytelling is how mankind is communicated. Whether it's cave paintings, whether it's those beautiful stained glass windows in a church, like we pass on our tales of morality through comic books, and Yoda, Spider-Man, Batman, Optimus Prime, like that's our modern day mythology. That's our Zeus.
I've said that for years.
That's our Hermes. That's our that's how we communicate. So there's something so humanistic, so connected to what makes us a species.
Of a species.
It does, and that's what goes through my head on something like Free Comic Book Day. And I applaud Diamond, I applaud Marvel and DC and all the publishers who put these books out. Like the Mouse Guard comic that came out is like it's a hardcover book.
I saw that one.
I got to give people like a free hardcover book today, and in this digital era, to put a book in someone's hands like that, it's just.
Well, you and I have talked in the past about like what I do every Halloween, where I basically give out comic books on Halloween instead of candy.
Yeah, and I applaud you for that. And I think stuff like that needs to happen. I think not just in comics, but I think like in general, we're losing. We don't get our hands dirty. Everything becomes so digital, And I've been pretty diligent and outspoken online about people like pirate comics and stuff. I just think that's
my opinion of that has always been, for the expensive stuff, for the stuff that you can't, plop down $150 for, but you want to read the story, and you've got a friend of yours who's got a file of it, okay, maybe. But you know, my feeling is like, you know, if it's a brand new issue, and you know, go to your store. You know, support your local business. You know, put it in your hands and actually read it and cherish it and pass it on. You know, that's always been.
Yeah, I've never downloaded a comic in my life. I think if you love something, you don't download it. You know, you just don't put it on your computer. And hopefully the future of digital comics isn't real. I fear that it is, but I never want to be like, oh, my comic collection is amazing. Let me reboot for you so you can see it. Like, as opposed to having your friend over and be like, dig through this box.
Let me tell you about my comic collection. But better yet, I'll email it to you.
It's bingo. Yeah, that's silly. But days like today are just like, I mean, I threw up all night last night. Like, I have severe anxiety about it. Because I worry that it's like, this will be the year nobody comes. But every year is always bigger and better. And industry-wide, I think we're doing a good job.
And that's something, you know, industry-wise, as far as Free Comic Book Day, it seems like, you know, when it first happened, there was maybe, 2-3 comics that came out back then.
Yes.
You know, but now it's actually something where, we got Aaron who's coming in with a price quote.
10 straight up on your left. 15. Well, that's with sale pricing. Sorry about that.
No, by all means.
No, it's a zoo. The line at the register has been like winding around the store for, at this point, 2 hours or so.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, but that's why I'm pleased as like an industry person. But at the same time, I was at the Avengers premiere at midnight, throwing free T-shirts and comics in the crowd, shaking hands, met hundreds of people. People want these stories.
Yes.
It's our job as shop owners, it's our job as retailers to put it on their coffee table and present to them this concept that comics aren't these like dorky arcane basement dwelling.
That's a stereotype from our generation.
And it is. And not only do we have to smash it, but we need to treat comics with the respect it deserves, because stuff like even Preacher and Why the Last Man and stuff like Pride of Baghdad, stuff like still Watchmen, to this day Watchmen, that stuff it's some of the greatest stuff ever told. They are stereotype arsonists. Like, they just burn all that stuff to the ground, and those are the books you want to put in people's hands and be like, if you want the coolest stories on earth, you're reading in comics. They're not in movies, they're not on TV, and it's no coincidence that a lot of these blockbuster cinema smashing summer hits are based on comics. We're only a few years removed from, there was an Entertainment Weekly cover that came out, and this is maybe 7 years ago or something like that, and it said, "Can comic books save Hollywood?" And I'm like a picture of like the
yes.
And I'm just like, yes, it can, because the greatest talent is in comics. And look at that TV show Lost. Like, they tapped Brian K. Vaughan out of from Why the Last Man. They were like when Hollywood and TV land wants a brilliant story, they go to comics.
And yeah, I was going to say, The Walking Dead, perfect example. Can you imagine 10 years ago a channel like American Movie Classics actually doing a show based on a comic?
Of course not. And here's the thing with Walking Dead, and I might get crucified for saying this, I'm not even a fan of the show. It's okay, but compared to the comic, it's just like that comic book is one of the most genius things, and every issue is good. Like, there's not a page of Walking Dead where you're just like, this is okay. And so I mean, the show's good, but the book is great. And I hate to sound like a cliche.
I only collect it in trade. That's my big thing. Is, you know, I don't go out and get the monthly.
I mean, what are you supposed to? A number one right now is doing between $750 and $1,000. So you know, how are you going to chase that down? I understand. You know. Yeah. And I love reading with the trade. Like, when you give someone a Walking Dead Volume 1 to read, they inevitably are like hooked.
Oh yeah, I've had to replace it at least 2-3 times now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because I've given it out to people, and they're like, oh, well, you know, I must have lost it. Unquote.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But hey, you know, if it gets reading out there, you know, like I say, with Halloween, when I pass out, it's all about getting the kids involved in the love of reading and comprehension.
Yes.
You know, and that's what it's always been.
And we're seeing our language devolve into like
LOLs.
Yeah, and OMGs and stuff. And I'll sing the praises of the comic books to my dying day. Like, God forbid there be some like comics just don't exist someday. I will always. It's just something I love, and I hate to be that guy, but like, I just love days like this. I love comics. I love what I do. I'm real lucky. You know, my life could have gone wrong a zillion times over at this point. I'm lucky to be alive. You know, and when I'm thankful for my life. I'm thankful for comics. When I'm thankful for why I'm here, it's like comics are a big part of that.
I've often said that, you know, in the event of the zombie apocalypse, once I get my stronghold set up, then I get the armored car over here and just grab all your vacations.
Funny you bring that up. I'm involved with a film crew that shoots something called Vegan Zombie on YouTube, and it's a web series, and we filmed an episode in the store and in the mall where we got to film an entire zombie invasion in the mall that my store is in Shoppingtown Mall in DeWitt, New York, and we got to film. It's on YouTube. If you type in Vegan Zombie Cloud City, you can see what we filmed
That's
here.
Hilarious.
And I played myself, and one of the main character, John, said, he's like, "What is this place?" And I was like, "Well, it's my job to make sure that when this whole mess is over, people remember who the superheroes are." And I've always thought like there was some world apocalypse that somebody would have to safeguard the comics. You know,
because you always see it's like all the books are burned and the aftermath.
Right?
Like, no, save the comics.
Save them for their not even their eBay value at that point, but for their value to our culture.
Now you've got Mike in the store today.
Mike Raich, writer of Stuff of Legend. He also did the new G.I. Joe Infestation last year's as well. Good friend, great guy, class act,
He's
great
been on the
ambassador
show
for comics.
We love Mike.
He's got a new project coming out, Wild Blue Yonder.
And for anybody who's at our YouTube channel, go there and you'll actually see the poster.
Yes. Then art by Zach Howard, who Zach's also here today. Zach Howard flew in from Denver, Colorado, into Syracuse, New York to be here today. He, man, I hate to be that guy, but he's brilliant. He's a genius. In The Cape, he did The Cape, written by Joe Hill.
Godzilla, Blue Beetle, Spider-Man. So he's worked for all the majors. He's on IDW, Marvel.
He has. His work on The Cape is one of my favorite of the last 5 years. The Cape, and I was just talking about, I couldn't imagine other artists on The Cape. Like, I love what Joe Hill's wrote as far as the story, and I love the marriage of those two was flawless for the book, and I'm excited for this Wild Blue Yonder project. I think it's going to be a banger for sure, and Zach's such a great guy. We also have Aaron Cooter here today. Aaron was the artist of Key of Z and Memory Wars for Claudio Sanchez.
We've had him on the show for Mythica Con.
Awesome guy, he's a great guy. And,
in fact, he's the one who turned Beyond the Key of Z, which I think actually should be one of those stories that gets turned into like a TV movie or a small budget movie. It's absolutely a great story.
Yeah, he's same thing. His visual style fit the book perfectly, and he is new on Avenging Spider-Man over at Marvel, and he's here today as well, doing some signing and sketching. So
yeah, he did a sketch for me of Monel back at Mythica Con in February because he couldn't announce the project at the time, but he was doing a fill-in issue for a DC project, which turned out to be the current issue of Legion Lost.
Legion Lost, yep.
And I have that here with me today to get him to sign.
That's awesome. I gave him Avenging Spider-Man #1, the blank cover variant, and he drew. I go, "I love your zombie work and I love you doing Spider-Man. Give me a collision." So he drew a zombie Spider-Man hanging upside down, but instead of the webbing, he's hanging by his own intestines. And it was just like hilarity ensued on that book. It was, it was good.
I'll have to get a snapshot of that later to put on the page.
Oh yeah, it worked out great. And he's
there it is. You just brought it in. Oh, look at that. We're going to show it on the video here, folks. Look at that. That is hilarious. Oh god.
Yeah, he's a class act. That guy's one of us. We love him. He's a great dude. It's great because we're a bunch of goofballs, and Aaron, my operations manager, he recently moved to Pennsylvania to open our new store down there, and I've been friends with Aaron for years, and we're just a couple of goofs. Yeah. So when Aaron first showed up, we were like, "What's your cooter?" And then he's like, "Yeah," and then within like an hour, we're like, "Oh, you're a dork like us," and we were just making filthy jokes.
That was like, the last time I was at Albany Comic Con with Joe Sinat, and I'm like, this guy's a living legend.
Yes, yes, he is.
He's like, let me tell you this story. Let me tell you this. And you just don't want him to stop talking.
No.
And his granddaughter's the same way. She's got great stories to tell. Growing up with him as a grandfather.
That's awesome.
And then of course, we're going to be announcing today, you and I right now, the auction, or the raffle that we're doing June 1st. It's going to be both here at Cloud City Comics in Syracuse and Ravenswood Comics in Utica, the Indiana Jones World Map, created by Matt Bush.
I'm excited about the map, and I've followed the story very closely. As you know, I've got a colorful history with
Yes.
one Mr. Rick Only.
Yes, as everyone knows. But starting June 1st, we're going to have one map in each location.
Yes.
We're going to be raffling them off. At the end of the month, you will be drawing a winning ticket here. Janine will be doing it at Ravenswood. All the proceeds go towards a local shelter. Now, Matt and I have talked at length, and at our website, the whole email exchange is right there for full disclosure.
Cool. Yes.
That the maps were originally made for disabled American veterans.
Yes.
And unfortunately, because of all the tangled links and everything with only involved.
Well documented.
Yeah. I sent Matt an email saying, hey, I've got 2 of them back if you want them. He's like, to be honest, go ahead and raffle them off, give them to a charity. He didn't even care which charity. I offered the DAV, and he's like, whatever you want to do is fine.
Awesome.
And I really got to thank Matt for that.
Yeah, as far as I've not had the pleasure of meeting him, but as far as I can tell, he's a real class act. And my brother had just come home from Iraq with the United States Army. My youngest brother, I'm the oldest of 5 boys. He's the youngest, and disabled veterans in general, something's very close to my heart. Not just for my brother, but a lot of our friends here travel from Fort Drum, and I'm like any real American. I'm so grateful for our troops and our U.S. Armed Forces. So I applaud, and I hope that money for disabled veterans goes through, whether it be through Rick behaving himself for 30 seconds or not. And also, animal shelters. I've been vegan for 20 years. I volunteered with the Sea Shepherds. I went down to Antarctica to fight whaling ships. So, my passion for animal protection is no secret. So
Exactly.
I just love seeing what we love end up working out to make the world a better place. That's important. So
And that's what it is. I mean, it's a deserving charity. It definitely,
Certainly.
And you've seen the rise of animal abuse cases here in the central New York area.
everywhere. Everywhere. It's staggering. And like I said, I've been vegan for 20 years. I went to Antarctica with the Sea Shepherds to fight whaling ships and to confront the whaling fleets. I was down there for 2005 and 2006, and when you see firsthand, when you see like a harpoon fired into a I can't even finish the thought. It's just it's upsetting. So it's good. I love this. I love that this stuff that we love is turning into.
You're gonna be there.
Well, and I got to say thank you for being nice enough to let us do it here at the site.
Happy to do it. No,
I can just come outside and bring you your ticket.
community service is, we Aaron and I volunteered at a homeless shelter locally, and community service is part of it. I mean, we read about superheroes, like, that's gotta rub off, like, that has to be part of it. That's why people like Rick confuse me to no end, because, like we grow up with it right in front of us, like, right in the pages in front of us, like, this is how a hero behaves, this is how a villain behaves. So being a superhero is always part of it, always. It has to be.
Rick will never understand community service. It's only about what the community can do for him, and that's pretty much all I'll say on this subject.
Yeah, well, then I guess I won't echo it. I mean, you really just have to go online to find out. It's tough being in Central New York. I'm the organizer of Syracuse Heroes Expo, which is one of the biggest comic conventions in the state. And for years I had such a hard time getting guests to come to Central New York because his reputation was so toxic.
And that's pretty much what got me involved in the whole Rick Only thing. Is when I came home, I sat there and said to a friend of mine, hey, we really should try to get a Comic Con going, here in town, get Ravenswood and the stores in Syracuse to promote it. And pretty much the 2 words out of everybody's mouth were Rick Only.
Rick Only. Yeah.
And the
Well, I
fact
gotta
that
tip my hat to you guys. The last podcast that you guys did, where you just kind of I thought it was brilliant. It was time that people saw a recent image of him and saw his face, and you got to see him lying, and it was just nice to have him exposed like that.
My personal 2 favorites were in the first podcast we did, where you can actually see the glint in his eye.
I didn't even know it was you. I heard that somebody was doing a podcast with him, and I was like, what dolt, what moron is giving this guy the time of day? And I was resentful to the point where I was like, some people are just desperate for headlines, and they know if they put his name in, they'll get good searches, whatever. I had no clue that it was like part of your master plan. You played that one so close to the chest, and you're in here all the time, and like you didn't even spill it, and I got to tip my hat, man. That was Spectacular.
See, because that's what I wanted to do with the first podcast is basically kiss his ass and let him trip himself up. You can see when he's like, I'm the devil's puppet, how much he enjoys screwing people over.
Yeah.
And then to see the blood drain out of his face on that video when he goes, you who?
Classic.
Yeah.
Just instant classic, you know? Yeah, I tipped my hat, man. That was great.
Well, thank you.
That was great.
I think we're going to wrap up right now for this. We'll be back in a couple minutes, folks, with either Mike or Aaron or whoever we can yank away from the tables. And I want to thank you, Jeff, for letting us come in today.
Thank you, bro. Thank
and
you
letting
so
us
much,
promote
man.
it, you know?
You're doing great stuff, man. I love the show. I love the podcast, and it's great. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having us. We'll be back, folks.
Stay gold, guys.